we kind of look at it in four ways. There's only four ways where your money can go. It can go to your loved ones, it can go to your lifestyle, it can go to the causes that you care about, philanthropy, charity, or the causes that the government cares about, right? Which is taxes. I've yet to have any client come in my office that wants to pay more taxes. So, usually we're trying to kind of move money to those other categories. But that always starts regardless of the size of family a client has, or whether they're close with them, whether they're not, if they're philanthropic or not. It always starts with the client themselves, right? What is that number that they need to live the lifestyle that they desire, for the rest of their years, right? We've all heard the flight attendant, put your own mask on before you help others, and that's where we start. And even though that's the first place to start, it's often the hardest, right? There's so many variables with costs and so many things that are unpredictable that it becomes extremely difficult to sort of pin down that number, right? The costs are changing. What are going to be the choices? How are we going to have inflation over these next couple of years? And then health, right? Health is extremely unpredictable. I haven't found a way to predict it yet. We use some sort of probabilities, but it's extremely difficult, and that's the largest expense for a lot of individuals, right? So, if we can kind of narrow that down and we can have that set as a fixed cost or at least a known cost, it makes the rest of the planning extremely, more straightforward and allows us to do it in an effective way.
We have another added feature in our contracts, and that's guaranteed lifetime residency. Yeah, so if you should outlive your money, let's say you live to 105, and don't tell me that's not possible, because we have 2 residents here that are 105, and you don't have to worry, because the Kendal Foundation will pay for your monthly service fee should you outlive your funds. Predicting age, life expectancies today is difficult. But the only thing that, and Ron, we spoke about this, you can't go to Vegas and spend the family fortune and come back and say, I don't have any money, right? So
definitely not. You can't do that.
Can't do that.
That's off the table, unfortunately. But yeah, having that that comfort and knowing that if the actuary tables and all these probabilities and things that we are trying to narrow down these ranges fail, you have that ability to stay in the place that you feel comfortable with. You don't have to be concerned with being healthier than you expected to be.
Yeah, and just on that note, it's important to keep in mind we're living in kind of a brave new world when it comes to life expectancy. You mentioned the 105-year-old. The first time I ever visited Kendal, I was taking a tour, and I met, his name's Bill, right? He's 105 years old, and I met him in the gym. All right. And he's still getting after it. And so, a generation ago, 2 generations ago, you had pretty good certainty that a guy was going to pass away in his early 70s, and the wife was going to live a couple of years and then probably go as well. And that's just not the case anymore. We're living longer, and the number one question that I get, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do estate planning for people, and particularly on the trying to prevent estate tax is, I'm very worried, people will come to me and they'll say, I'm very worried I'm going to outlive my money. And because they don't know how long they're going to live. And if they come, I would say you come to a community like this, you're actually going to extend your life pretty significantly. And because you are going to stay active mentally and physically at a community like this. And the number one thing that I see with my clients, that if they want to deteriorate quickly, be socially isolated. Don't keep your mind fresh, and don't do physical activities. If you want to live a long time, stay mentally sharp, stay physically active, be around other people, like-minded people. You mentioned all of the different committees and things that are going on here. I was just looking at the board, maybe 15, 20 minutes ago, and all the different activities that are happening, and that's going to extend your life. But now you've got a concern that if you're not in a community like this, am I going to outlive my money? Having that guaranteed residency here, I mean, that's just a game changer for people. As you said, Lois, not a lot of communities offering that, that's just a testament to this being a Kendal Corporation facility versus some of these corporations that are really where the profit motive is much more the motivation.
Yeah, it's good you brought that up because we are a not-for-profit, so
Right.
that makes a big difference too.
Generation. If you want to have inheritance certainty, so to speak, for the next generation or for charities or whatever it may be, going with a hard number of 50% refundable is probably the better way to go because at least you know what that number is going to be. With the non-refundable, it is 2% a year, 2% a month declining, right? And so because we don't know how long we're going to be around, that if you intend to be here longer than 25 months, then you'll be money ahead on the 50% refundable versus the non-refundable. However, because the fees are lower, the entrance fees lower on the non-refundable, and the monthly maintenance fees are lower, the consideration there is really around a lot of you here are going to have guaranteed income sources. You're going to have a pension. You're going to have Social Security, and so the lower the monthly fee is, the more likely it is that you're going to be out of those guaranteed sources, that you're going to be able to pay that fee either the supermajority of it or all of it. And so what that means is that your investments, your 401ks, your IRAs, your 403bs, your regular old retirement investment accounts, you don't have to touch. You can just pay your monthly fees out of your guaranteed income sources. And so those fees being lower, that's a big consideration. And so, it's not, to my mind, it's not one size fits all. What I would coach, my mother is 72, what I would coach her based on her financial factors and her health factors are different than what I would coach any of you, right? Every person is different. Under federal tax law, there's a medical expenses deduction. And as long as your medical expenses are over 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, you can deduct those amounts. Now, what that means is that you're going to be itemizing your deductions rather than taking the standard deduction. The standard deduction these days is pretty high. Tax laws may change, so that could go down. But it's just know that part of these fees. I believe on the actual the life care agreement is considered. I know that I have a copy of it here, but that is considered a medical expense that can be deducted. Obviously the fee, I'm just looking at the non-refundable for Alita, Robert Fulton, and Claremont buildings. That one person fee, that for the life care agreement, that's $125,000. So if you had a year in which you had, the year before you moved in here, or the year that you moved in here, you had significant income, particularly on the investment side these days, right? Stocks are going up. Everything's going up, seems like. And so you can offset some of those gains with this giant tax deduction that you can get for that life care agreement fee. And then I believe some of the monthly maintenance fees as well will be subject to that, particularly once you get out of independent living and into assisted long-term skilled nursing or memory care, where you're really getting high-quality medical care, but now you can start writing off some of those expenses as well. So there's kind of the one-time tax benefit that you can get, but then there's also kind of a long-term tax benefit that you can get as well, which is very, very nice.
Yeah, just on that, preface it by saying that I'm not a tax professional, so anything that I do say, make sure you're checking with a CPA or a tax advisor of yours. But there's really two types of tax benefits to this sort of thing, and Kylan alluded to it. There's the initial entrance fee, which is that large one-time fee, and then you have your monthly maintenance fees, right? And so on that initial entrance fee, that is that sort of large, potentially a little bit of sticker shock type of situation. that provides a large deduction that you can have, in that year that you pay it. One of the problems that people have from time to time is that year that you're going to be paying that, you might not have that much income to be deducted, right? You might have less income than you're having before, or you might have very little, income depending on your situation. One of the ways that can turn that problem into, a benefit is through, and it's not right for everybody, but in some situations, is what's called a Roth conversion. Just kind of a poll, and does anyone have an IRA? IRAs, yeah, retirement accounts, right?
Amount, yeah.
How many of you have a Roth IRA? Okay.
Good amount.
And what about a traditional IRA? Okay, so pretty split. Okay. So, not to, I'm sure everybody knows what the differences are with the IRAs, but just a quick summary. The traditional IRAs, you don't pay the taxes now, it grows tax deferred, you pay those taxes in the future. And the government wants to make sure they get that, so they actually put a year, I think it's 73 now, on when you have to start taking distributions from that, and they want to get that tax money, right? And the Roth is reversed. You pay the taxes on it today, it goes into an account, and then you don't have to pay that tax in the future for the lifetime of the account. And because the government's already got their money, they don't care if you ever take it out, for a long period of time. What you can do to kind of increase your taxable income during the year that you're doing that entrance fee is you can do that Roth conversion. So if you have a traditional IRA and you're not planning to use those funds for that entrance fee, you could take advantage of the opportunity to convert that traditional IRA into the Roth. And you want to convert the traditional IRA into the Roth because of all the benefits we just said. There's no more taxes, there's no required date when you have to distribute them. But the reason everybody doesn't do that is because there's a large, tax liability that comes with it. The income in that year is going to be higher. So if you do $100,000, just for round number sake, into a Roth, you'll add $100,000 to your income for that year. Not always the best choice for a lot of people. But if you have a large deduction, like the entrance fee to a community like this, that could be an opportunity in the right situation for you to take advantage of that, benefit from that deduction at that time, move a large portion of those assets into that Roth. Now you've paid the taxes on it. It's in there. You don't need to take anything from it if you don't need to. It grows tax deferred. It can go to your spouse. It can actually go to the next generation, and there'll be never any tax liabilities that come with that. So, it's an opportunity for you to kind of take advantage of, you're already going into the community. Now take advantage of that deduction. And then just on the other piece, just to kind of add on to what Kylan said as well, the monthly maintenance fees are what's called, there's a prepaid medical deduction that you can have, and Kylan alluded to, I think it's about 7.5% over your expenses, your AGI. What's interesting about, and that's not specific to this type of community, anybody can kind of take that deduction. What's interesting and what's unique to these types of communities is, and Lois, you alluded to it a little bit, it's kind of an insurance product. So there's a pooling nature of the medical expenses, right? So if you're moving to one of this type of community and you are healthy and you don't have any additional care, any kind of medical expenses, there's a portion of that monthly maintenance fee that's pooled with everyone else that you can actually use as a prepaid medical expense. So even if you're not actually receiving the care, your neighbor and your neighbor over there that are actually using the care is going to benefit you by being part of the community. So, if you're very healthy, you don't have a lot of, increased medical expenses, that's an added deduction that you can have just by being a part of the community and being involved here.
So there's two different types of trusts. There's revocable trusts and irrevocable trusts. A revocable trust is usually set up to avoid probate. That's why people usually do them. You put you retitle your home, your personal effects, maybe certain types of accounts that you have. You title them in the name of the revocable trust, and then when you pass away, those assets avoid probate and they get distributed according to the trust document, avoiding the court system altogether. In that instance, you've created this trust, and it's good while you're alive. You pay the taxes on it. You're the trustee for it. And so you have the ability to whatever property you've put in there, you still have the ability while you're alive to control and benefit from that property as long as you're alive. And so in that instance, you could sell. You would say 5-10 years ago, you placed your house into a revocable trust. You could sell that home. You get the proceeds from it. Use those proceeds then to purchase your contract here at Kendal. And use that money just as you would if it was, a bank account that was in your name. So that one's easy. The tougher one is the irrevocable trust, because irrevocable trusts are typically put together for one of two reasons. One, you're trying to avoid estate tax on different property, and so you're placing property into a irrevocable trust for that purpose, or you've done some Medicaid long-term care planning and moved assets into an irrevocable trust for that purpose. The downside of an irrevocable trust is you cannot, once that asset is in an irrevocable trust, you cannot benefit from it. And so your trust document, if you have an irrevocable trust, is going to say who can benefit from the trust while you're alive. Maybe no one, maybe you said, oh, my children can, whatever. And you've nominated somebody else to be trustee other than yourself. So if you place your house into an irrevocable trust and you say, my daughter is the trustee of my irrevocable trust, well, now your daughter is responsible for that asset, not you. They make the decisions on what happens with that asset, not you. And then finally, if that house gets sold by the trustee, you can't benefit from those funds. And as a result of that, you can't benefit from those funds to purchase your Kendal Life Care contract. Now, there's different things. Obviously, children can gift you money, separate from all of that. There's different strategies that you can do in that regard. As Ron said, I would highly encourage you to talk to a tax accountant about that, in addition to an estate planning attorney. But the final thing on that note, Lois, is I do think it's relevant to discuss kind of what assets or the tax implications of using different assets to purchase your life care contract here, and whether it's to pay the entrance fee, pay the life care agreement, or both. So if you use your if you use your investment assets, any money that you take out there, if you've had gains, you owe capital gains tax on it. And so that, depending on how long you've held that asset, that's somewhere between 15 and 37%. If you bought the stock yesterday and sold it today and made $100,000, it would be taxed as ordinary income. If you've held it for a year or more, and over time the tax rate declines. But still, you're still paying a pretty penny if it's a significant amount of investment value. But you're paying a significant amount in tax. Homes have a great capital gains tax benefit, which is if it's been your primary residence for 2 of the last 5 years, when you sell that asset, depending on whether you're single or married, you get somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 capital gains tax free. And so. It depends on your situation, which is better, whether to use investment products and pay capital gains tax on that, or to sell the home and take the capital gain exempt money to purchase your Kendal contract. But that's just something to really consider, and really the tax benefit of owning a home when it comes to the sale of that home is just pretty significant, and sometimes people forget that.
The non-refundable contract, let's say you pay $100 for it, you can get some of your $100 back over the next 50 months. It'll decline 2% a month every month for 50 months until it declines to 0. So if you left, let's say you decide you want to move to Hawaii and you're here 9 months. So you paid $100, you were here 9 months, and if it declines 2% a month, that means 18% would not be refunded to you, but the other 82, is the math
Yep,
right?
that's right.
Will be refunded to you. So during that first 50 months, the longer you're here, the less that would be refunded to you, but you do have that capability of getting some money back. On the 50% refundable, it works the same way, except when it gets to that 50% marker, which is about 2 years in, it stays 50% refundable for life. So if you move to Hawaii after 9 months, having a 50% refundable contract, you'll get more than 50% back because it hasn't amortized to that 50% level yet. But once you get to 50%, if you're here 8 years and you want to move to Hawaii, you'll get back 50% of your entrance fee. I usually say age is a big factor.
Oh, absolutely. Age, health, how your estate, how your finances are sort of situated as well. But I do want to say a couple of things about those contracts as well. So, or just the numbers involved here. Compared to the cost of facilities out in the universe these days, these monthly fees are not crazy. In fact, they're pretty low when you look at the amenities that we have here. I was just at a facility. I won't use any names. Beautiful facility, but the worst room in the facility was $7,700 a month, right? And the problem with some of those private pay kind of month-to-month facilities is you don't know what those fees are going to look like next year. Here, I believe that the monthly maintenance fees are going up 3.5% next year, which is basically the inflation rate, which is pretty normal. Outside of Kendal, the monthly rates have exploded, especially post-COVID, all over this country, but especially in New York. And so you're getting a very good deal on the monthly maintenance fee side, in my personal opinion. And you've got pretty good certainty that, yes, those fees may go up a little bit, but you're not going to get it, where you get a low introductory offer and then year two, the cost explodes. It's not going to happen on you here. And then the second thing about the entrance fee that I really think is important to know, that they really put that money to work. You'll see here when you go to have lunch with all of us here in a minute, and you walk around this facility, it's absolutely beautiful. But it's not set it and forget it. I don't know if anybody caught here when they were walking in, but they had samples. They're looking at refurbishments to the lobby, right? And so I'm sure there's a committee around here that's saying, oh, we want this carpet, this tile, whatever. And the same thing is happening to the dining room, which I walk in there and I say, there is not a thing wrong with that dining room, and yet they're gonna make it even more, make it even better. They're gonna modernize it even further. And so they're putting, it's not like you're just throwing your money in and then you're like, well, where's this money going? They actually are investing in the property. And again, I think that's a testament to the ethics and morals that the Kendal Corporation has. And you just don't get that at a lot of facilities. You can see the for-profit motive everywhere you go.
Life care is your continuum of care. It's assisted living, it's memory care, it's skilled nursing, it's subacute rehab, and that's what life care is. And that's what makes us have the need to be licensed by the New York State Department of Finance. So what if you have long-term care insurance? Okay, because that's exactly what this is. Because when you come here to Kendal, you do not need long-term care insurance. And you have the best long-term care insurance policy that money can't buy, okay? So you have 100% coverage. But what if you have long-term care insurance? Well, you've been paying premiums for a long time, and we always want a return on our investment. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you can use that long-term care insurance, the benefits that you have under those policies, you can use them here. Unfortunately, long-term care insurance, there's so many different variables with it. There may be a waiting period. There's going to be a maximum benefit amount per month or maximum benefit amount per year. It really depends on the specifics of your policy. But you can use those funds when you get to the point of needing care to pick up some of the costs that you have. But I'm really impressed by this facility, and I love coming here because how I got into estate planning really was my grandmother got dementia. She got it at 83, which is fairly late, but she lived with it for 5 years. And I just remember my grandmother lived with my family for many years before she got ill, but I remember the shock of, Mama's not going to be able to live with us anymore, and just this mad scramble to find a facility that would take her, that we could afford. And here we are, 15, 20 years on. I just think, if my grandmother was at Kendal and was in independent living, we wouldn't have had a shock. We would have said, okay, well, A, we know what the costs are going to be because we've bought into this and we've locked in our rates for that care. And 2, we know where she's going to be. She's just going to move from one room to another in the same facility. And she's going to see the same people, and we know the quality of care that she's going to get. And that level of certainty, not just on the financial side, but the peace of mind that you have as the person, that unfortunately could get sick, but also that your family would have, the peace of mind that they would have. I just think, there's a non-economic value to that that is very significant.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I'll just, I spoke a little bit earlier about the challenges of trying to kind of plan around these types of things. And, it's challenging in an environment when everything's calm and we're sitting around a table, we're being proactive. But, when health changes, when something happens, which inevitably it does over time, that's when those decisions become even more difficult to make for a family together. The temperature's been turned up, there's a lot of emotions, and now, as Kylan alluded to, potentially scrambling for, the right situation. What are the right situations? Educating yourself on these different levels of care that you never thought about before because, you weren't necessarily expecting, perhaps, that type of health issue. There's infinite amount of health issues that can come. And, just having that comfort, not only for yourself, but that again, like Karen said, for the family as a whole, as they're, trying to make these decisions together, it really does, at least in the families that I work with, can release a lot of burden from, the individual and from the family members, which is, more than financial, I think.
I always say you make plans when you can and not when you have to, because then somebody else will be making them for you.
Talked about it. At Kendal, you get to lock in pricing. You don't get to do that out there in the world, and the cost of this stuff's absolutely exploded. To use the example of my grandmother, needed memory care, right? She had dementia. Most of the places out there, they're going to charge $15,000 a month for that, and I guarantee you, if we're sitting here 3 years from now, it'll be $20,000. And so the longer you wait, the higher these costs are going to go. And, that you're going to be wishing, oh man, I wish I had locked that in 5 years ago. I wish I had locked that in 3 years ago. Just like the people who are trying to buy a house these days. Boy, I should have bought one when the rates were 2.5, not at 6.3, right? It's the same type of thing.
One spouse will stay in the independent living apartment. The other spouse will receive 24-hour care in assisted living, and you continue to pay your same monthly fee. The fees don't go up. You continue to pay those same fees. Should one of you no longer live here, it's the second person in the room fee that would be eliminated, right? But that's the predictability of it. The other thing is that being a couple, you're getting to see each other, eat together, go to the concerts together, go to the art studio together. You're not separate. Who cares if there's a blizzard outside? You don't have to get in the car and drive.
Unfortunately, with a long-term care, just like any other any other insurance policy, but maybe even more than a health insurance policy, long-term care is really like policy specific. So when you go out and you shop for long-term care insurance, your broker will be like, well, what kind of a maximum benefit amount do you want, and what kind of a waiting period do you want? And there's dozens of different variables on these policies, and so how much it will cover and what it will cover is really dependent on the policy that you bought. And unfortunately, with some of these older policies, fortunately or unfortunately, older policies tend to have better benefit amounts. Because quite frankly, 20, 30 years ago, the insurance companies really didn't know how to project out the costs. And a lot of them have gone out of business as a result because their actuaries just didn't know how to price this stuff. But the unfortunate part is that you didn't know either when you bought the policy what you were going to need. You didn't understand how costs were going to explode. It seemed like something that was way off in the future in terms of waiting periods and benefit amounts and all that. My mom, just for example, my mom bought a policy in 2006, and the annual benefit maximum is $47,000. Well, back then that was almost like full coverage, and now it's out in the real world. Now it's about a quarter of the cost, and so that unfortunately it's very much dependent on the policy that you bought, the terms that are within that policy. But suffice it to say that if you do need care and you do need higher levels of care, there's a good likelihood that at least some some portion of the care that you're going to need should be able to be reimbursed through that long-term care insurance policy. And what I can encourage everybody who has a policy here, I really encourage you to reach out to your agent and get more specific about the terms of your policy so that you understand when you're coming into a great community like this, that you understand what's going to be able to be picked up and what's not.
Real quick, if you have long-term care insurance, a lot of them cover private duty aids. So if you wanted to have a private duty aid, your policy would probably cover that for you, which you're entitled to get at your own expense. And then if you ever were receiving care in assisted living or skilled nursing, we'll give you the supporting documents. You submit a claim to your long-term care insurance company, and the check goes to you like it would. We just continue to give you your same monthly bill. We don't want anything to do with your money from your insurance policy. So you can still get it. And people ask me, Lois, should I cancel my policy? So we don't like to ever tell people to do that, but listen, it's insurance. You have homeowners insurance. Nobody wants their house to burn down, right? You have car insurance. Nobody wants an accident. You have it for protection. So you bought your long-term care insurance for protection. And you can certainly use it here at some point. So, it's entirely up to you and your advisors of what to do with that.